Hey guys, Stealth here, and welcome back to Wargame Ash and Shadows. Today we're having a look at the Russian Armory, and bloody hell, there are a lot of units to cover here. Again, I'm not providing tech support on the installation or on the technical details of this mod. There's a Discord for that, specifically devoted to the mod, and Spectre, the author of the mod, is also lurking around the comment sections here. So, the best chance that you have if you have tech difficulties with this mod is to go through the Discord there. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's have a look. A couple of new units in the logistics section. I believe that the BMD-2K has not been changed, but some of these other command tanks have. The T80UK still looks pretty much like it always did, but we have a new one. The T14 Armata K. Again, do not look at the models. You cannot add, at least as far as I understood it, you cannot add new models to the game. But you can repurpose them, if you will. So you're going to see some Western nations or Western unit models used in Eastern decks, etc. Anyway, T14 Armata K. It's very, very heavily armored for a command tank. 23 points of frontal armor. Very high in the anti-tank section at 25 AP. Very good accuracy. Of course, since it's one of these fast tanks, you're going to see 60 kph off-road. It's not as fast as the T80 UK or the T80 line as a whole, but still, this thing definitely holds its own. I do, however, think it's slightly overpriced if you compare it to the Command Abrams. The differences here are not that spectacular. I mean, this is a price hike of 65 points. But you get the same amount of frontal armor, you get less side armor, you get less back armor, and slightly more top armor. You get a slightly better gun at 25 versus 20, which is slightly more accurate, but has less range, 2275 versus 2450. It's a smaller profile. This is a medium-sized tank for us, is a big-sized tank. Mobility favors the Abrams as far as speed goes, but the autonomy wins out for the Armata K. So I do not really see why this thing would be 225 points. I'd say make it somewhere around 170 maybe, 180 if you want to go higher. Because of course you gotta validate that 25 points of armor piercing somehow. But this much, I think that's a bit too much. Also, looking at the armaments, this thing carries 55 rounds and this one only carries 11. So maybe either nerf the Abrams or give this thing a price buff, so lowering the price. Anyway, moving on. Not too many new units here, except for some transports, such as the SB60K2 Bulat. Not too special, it's just a transport. Does have some armor, and as you can see, really, really fast. 80 kph off-road, of course, being a wheeled vehicle, 150 on-road. Very good autonomy. And very, very cheap if you want to get something that can get your command infantry there without making it much of a price hike. Next up is the K17 Boomerang. Again, quite unusual to see a command infantry transport which has pretty severe weaponry on it. This is, in some sense, an upgrade to the BTR-90. At least that's what it resembles. And of course, that's not just the model, but also the way the vehicle is built. It's a wheeled vehicle, comes with an autocannon. It does not come with a grenade launcher, but it does come with the Shershin P2B anti-tank weapon. It's a guided weapon. You need to keep looking at the target, not fire and forget. It does, however, hit like a brick, because this thing has a lot of accuracy and a lot of AP. Unfortunately, it does not hit from the top, because that would mean one-shot kills on pretty much any tank that you could find. But it does, however, have very, very good range, 2905 meters. And considering most tanks are going to be only firing at you at 2275, that gives you a nice margin. And the K17 Boomerang is also available for quite some other infantry units. We have the Mi-38. It's nothing special. It's a really, really fast transport helicopter, 300 kph, medium stealth as most Helos do at this point. Then we have the KA-92. Now if you really need to get your command infantry somewhere in a hurry, use the KA-92. Because the KA-92 has a speed of 540 kph. This thing is going to zoom across the battlefield and there will be very, very few things that can catch it. In the meanwhile, you can use either a Gatling gun or rocket pods, although I do not think they're going to be too accurate once you're zipping across at 500 kph. But for early terrain grabs or specific command zone grabs, I think that this could be a very interesting option. Take note, it is a 40-point unit, so it is going to make your infantry quite a bit more expensive. But if you really want to do some sort of fast land grab, then this is the one that you want to be using. Other units, the Volk GU. It replaces the standard UAZ, and it does get some upgrades. Also, it gets a price improvement. It used to be 100 for the lowest price command vehicle, that's now 80. So you can really cheaply get your command zones captured. 120 kph, 150 on-road because it's a wheeled, very nice autonomy, no stealth unfortunately, but then again it's a command vehicle. And that pretty much concludes it for logistics. So let's move on to infantry because there's a hell of a lot to see here. Most, if not all of these units have been renamed. Russia was never really short on infantry, and as you can see, they sure have a lot of options. Again, most, if not all of these are new and or have gotten their transports changed. So what you see here is, and I'm probably going to be butchering this Russian, the Betepa Pechota. I think that's how you should be pronouncing that. Standard, well actually not so standard, 15-man assault squad, shock trained. Comes with the RPK-16 and a pretty good anti-tank weapon. Range is 595, it's not that good. I don't really think it deserves to be in the red though, because most of the standard anti-tank weaponry used to be at that range. And of course, if you start to compare that to anti-tank weapons which are standoff range, so 1500 or greater, then it's still red. So I'm not sure if this compares it to infantry itself or to anti-tank weaponry as a whole, which of course you can get 2900 meter range at vehicles and even far better range at aircraft. Anyway, couple of new transports here for them. They got the Ka-92, means they're a nice escort for your command helicopter or your command infantry inside there. BMP-3, as far as I can tell, has not been changed. What we do have now is the Coronet 2S. This one comes very heavily armored for a transport. At 10 frontal armor, this thing can definitely take a hit. Also comes with 15 strength, and mind you, it has its own ECM. This is an infantry transport that has a way to distort enemy anti-tank weaponry fired at it, which is a very interesting option. And in the meanwhile, while you're transporting your infantry at very good speed and offloading them into the heat of battle, you're also going to be firing back at the enemy with the 2A72 M3, which is more accurate and I believe has more armor piercing than the other vehicles. And if that is not really in range yet, you can always use the Coronet anti-tank weapon. Again, it's a guided weapon, but it definitely hits very hard at 27. Now, if you find that this is not enough armor, the 10 points, then you could try and upgrade to the BTRT. The BTRT, of course, is the vehicle that we do know from Wargame in the standard variety, if you will. Grenade launcher on there, 13 frontal armor, medium optics, pretty good speed off-road, although for a transport it's starting to get a little low end. Not amphibious, off-road speed, road speed of course pretty good, but it might not be enough armor for your transport. 13 frontal armor on a transport, yeah, that's a bit low, isn't it? So let's go for the T14 Heavy Ifv. Again, do not mind the unit model, but this is pretty much the transport version of the T14 Armata. 18 points of frontal armor. It has the same weapon loadout as the Kurganets and I believe the BMP-3. No, not quite. This thing again comes with 20% ECM. Despite more armor load, it is faster than the BTRT that you were looking at. Autonomy is still really good. You're pretty much buying an IFV, which comes with an ATGM and an autocannon for the price of a light tank. And in some regards, you could consider this thing a light tank in its own regard. So yeah, very heavily armored transport. Moving on to the Gornostrelki 10. These guys have gotten a new weapon. It's a fire and forget anti-tank weapon at a range of 1900. Very good armor piercing capability, very good accuracy, medium stealth, good stealth, of course, as you see with most infantry. Their transport options are not that interesting. We have the Mi-22 VM, which is a new or changed helicopter. Comes with the Chrysanthema ATGM. Very good armor piercing, fire and forget. So these things can just fly over and dump one of these things onto your vehicles or tanks, and at that range you probably wouldn't even be in range to fire back at them. Very fast, 330, like most of the Mi-24 line. And it also comes with the rocket pods in case you need to deal with enemy infantry just a bit faster. We also still have the old and trusted Mi-24D in there, but if you compare the Mi-24D to the Mi-24 VM, for 65 points, so that's a 15-point increase, I would always pick the Mi-24 VM. Just because you're basically buying yourself a gunship. Whereas the Mi-24D, yes, it's a gunship, but its anti-tank capability is just not as good. Moving on, Gornostrelki 95. These are the older version. They do, however, now come with their own heavy machine gun. You can see that these things do slightly more suppressive damage. I believe it is pretty similar, but better than the Gornos. So that's the Gorno 10. And that's interesting. So the 95s carry a better anti-infantry weapon than the Gorno 10. At least if you compare the machine guns. Light machine gun, heavy machine gun. Suppression 80, suppression 55. Accuracy, same, but range is slightly better on this one. Especially against helicopters, come to think of it, because these guys can only fire back at Helos at little under 600, and these at well over 900. As for their transports, they have the Mi-38, which I already covered in the logistics section, and other than that, not anything too interesting. I'm going to just try this. This is the Gwardyjskoi Modestrelki. Again, pretty much your standard Modestrelki with the changes to their heavy machine gun. And I believe that the RP7 or RPG-7 VR used to be carried by the heavier version of the Modestrelki. As for transports, nothing really too special here. They do, however, have access to the BMP-1M. Comes with an autocannon as well as a pretty decent range, although not the best. It's only 2450. Does hit quite hard. No stabilizer on there. Park and shoot. But its accuracy is really nice. Frontal armor is alright. Optics alright. Speed okay at 60. And overall, it's pretty much a cheaper alternative if you don't want to break the bank and go all out on the T14 Heavy Ifv. Other transports that you see here, I think we've covered most of these. I think, yeah, the Bulat are covered with the infantry command vehicle, and these are just all the same units, but with 12 different modes of transportation. Then we have the Misha Sturmovie, I think. Again, I'm not Russian, I'm Dutch, so my Russian is not going to be what it should be. Pretty much a heavy machine gun team, which is an interesting way of setting these guys up. They do not come equipped with an anti-tank weapon. They do, however, present themselves as a 15-man squad, and especially with this weapon, they can provide a lot of fire support to your other infantry squads. I wouldn't put them into the same building as other units, because this thing does not have a CQC tag, and I believe that that means that it will not be able to fire at the enemy if they're in the same building, which means that you're reverting to the AK-74. And in a situation like that, I would not put these guys up toe-to-toe to enemy infantry. As for their transports, again, 12 different variants, all of which I have covered by now. Morskaya Pekota, again we see the heavy machine gun, also the RPG-30, very, very accurate weapon, decent armor piercing, standard AK-74, and once again a 15-man squad. Shock trained, these guys are definitely going to be bruising up the enemy infantry. And if you have these guys on the front line, they can also take care of transports and or tanks, depending on what they come across. Whereas the Misha could be supporting them with heavy machine gun fire. Not that these guys don't carry their own heavy machine gun, but if you have a couple of these mixed in, let's say you bring in these at maybe the BTR 90 or the Boomerang, and then you're paying, you're paying 58 for one unit of infantry. Economy is a bit different here. And bring in a couple of these Mishas for fire support. Again, they're 25 points. So if you want to flood a town, don't use either of these, but revert to something like this for 19 points. But if you don't mind breaking the bank a little bit and going all out with income, then the Mishas with the Morskayas I think could be a good combination. Then we have standard Monstroki. Nothing too special here. Very, very cheap option if you want to just take a town and hold it. Whereas these guys do come with a hell of an anti-tank weapon. 25 AP. They're just not very accurate with it. That's an interesting alternative. Comparing that to what you see here, which is the guards. Their anti-tank weapon has more range, or actually same accuracy, slightly less AP, and a low rate of fire. Other than that, they come with a heavy machine gun versus the light machine gun. But you're also paying twice as much for the guards as you are for the Monstroki. So this is again going to be a trade-off. What class of infantry or what quality of infantry would you like? And I'll leave that up to you. Moving on to anti-tank weapons. The Conquerors, I believe, has not been changed too much, with the exception of its range at 2625. The other one, the Conquerors M, again, has not been changed too much. They also have the Coronet in here. This is a new anti-tank weapon, guided, not fire and forget unfortunately. Range is really good, accuracy 55%, AP 27. It's a 3-man squad, so keep in mind that one shot will wipe out the whole group. But if you combine, for example, a Coronet team with something like the BTR Robot or, let's see, actually, yeah, I think the Boomerang would be better for them. Because the Boomerang also provides an anti-tank capability. Again, these guys are 27 per 3-man squad, plus a 28-man or 28-point vehicle. Your ATGM infantry just got way more expensive. Keep that in mind as you're building up a deck. The Igla, fire and forgets, I'm not sure if they always were. Range is pretty good, 2800 meters, 2450 against aircraft. Accuracy, not that good. Their HE is 5, and that could be a very important statistic, as, for example, aircraft now come with a 12, if not more, strength, which means that you need to be hitting these things quite a few times before they go down. Fortunately, the Iglas are quite cheap, and the Scrajet is still there as a support unit in case you want to deal more damage to aerial units. But overall, the Igla not too good. Fortunately, the Igla N as well as the Verba can help you out in that regard. Verba, better range, better accuracy. Igla N again, an upgrade over the standard Igla. HE 5 and 6. Again, not too great. You're going to have to do quite a few of these in deployment if you want to kill something. But they can be used as, for example, flank defense. Next, all the engineers. I believe these guys have not been changed too much. We have the standard Sapri and the Sapri 85. The RPO that we all know. I'm not sure if there's anything that changed there. I don't believe so. And finally we have the Spetsnaz and the Vdv. The Spetsnaz are now still a 10-man squad. I'm not exactly sure whether classed as Spetsnaz Heavy. They are definitely very powerful infantry units, of course coming with 10 napalm rounds at 630 meter range. They will melt enemy infantry, like they always did. You have a few transport options here that you didn't have with the other infantry units, such as the KA-60, 300 kph helicopter, very fast medium stealth, also comes equipped with a Coronet Thermobaric. Now this thing might look like an ATGM, but it's not. It's an anti-infantry weapon, or anti-vehicle if you will, but I would use it in an anti-infantry role. It only carries 2 of them, but its accuracy is quite good, and at 8 HE power they can almost one-shot an infantry squad. And that is, especially combined with Spetsnaz, a very nice role. The one problem that I see with this is that I usually bring in Spetsnaz when the enemy has already entrenched in the town and I need some sort of heavy infantry to root them out. The problem is that if the enemy has the town, there could be anti-air weaponry nearby. That is not really when you want to bring in the KA-60. The Spetsnaz would then drive in, meaning that you're never going to get to field this thermobaric weapon. So it still begs the question, how are you going to deploy this? Next up, Vdv, as well as the Vdv Copia. And there's even a third variant of Vdv, the Vdv Heavy, but I'll cover those in a minute. The Vdv still have their Vampire missile, or the Vampire anti-tank weapon. The standard Vdv, I believe, used to come with something else, but the Vdv 90 had the Vampire. That has now been changed. The Vdv are now the Vdv, or what was formerly known as the Vdv 90. So that's why you can see the Vampire on them. The Vdv Copia also come with the very accurate weapon, the RPG 30. Slightly less range, slightly less AP, better rate of fire. They carry 8 of them, so they're going to go through these things faster. But the beauty of it is they can also engage aircraft. Very accurate, 70%. Keep in mind that as you are using a SAM and a tank weapon, these guys are more suitable in a commandos role than they are in a direct anti-infantry role. For that, you have plenty of other options, and among the Vdv, I would just pick the standard Vdv if you're going up against infantry or pushing through a town. And then we have the Vdv Heavy. So far, I was not really too impressed with their performance over the standard Vdv. If you look at the AK-74, this thing has the exact same stats. The RPK-16 has the exact same stats. It's still a 10-man squad, still shock trained. Their anti-tank weapon is in fact worse than what you're seeing on the standard Vdv. So I'm not exactly sure what the appeal is of the Vdv Heavy, because they have exactly the same transport options as the standard Vdv. So how these things differ, I haven't quite figured out yet. Moving on to support, where we have some new units. The artillery platforms haven't been changed that much, at least not that I can tell. You have the Chulpan, which is a new long-range mortar system. Fires 240mm rounds, which means that they do a lot of HE damage. They're sort of stuck between being an artillery platform such as a howitzer and a mortar, because their range is far less than what you're seeing here, but their rate of fire isn't much better than a standard howitzer. Their HE value is a lot better though, so I would say that these things are medium range support mortars, if that makes sense. Of course, with the 240mm rounds, they do not carry that many of them, only 24, which means that while these things will hit hard, you will need to keep an eye on them and resupply them quite a lot more than you would with the standard mortars, which carry far more rounds. The standard mortars, I believe, have moved over to the vehicle tab, so we're going to see those in a minute. As for AA, long-range missile platforms such as the Buk has been changed to the Buk 2ME or M2E. Very, very accurate, as you can tell, 90%. Carries 6 missiles. It is radar guided, which means it can be jammed by anti-aircraft weapon systems, or sorry, by anti-radar systems such as the seed planes. The Buk MI2 or M1-2 compared to the standard Buk has slightly better range, 9.1 kilometer. You're going to drop a little bit of accuracy, but if you get a hit with the Buk M2, or sorry, the Buk M1-2, yeah, that's not that's not confusing at all. If you get a hit with one of these, the plane dies. Period. 18 HE. There's very, very little that can survive something like that, if any. Also, this thing can engage helicopters, which is a nice change compared to most of the long-range anti-air batteries, such as the Patriot. And yes, I know that this one can do it too, but this one sacrifices a little bit of helicopter range in a favor for anti-airplane range. You also have the S350E Vityaz. If you want to never have to resupply your anti-air, this would be the weapon system for you. Jesus, I sound like some sort of military salesman. I'm not an arms dealer. This weapon system comes with 16 missiles, which are fire and forget. Now that is definitely an upgrade over the book, because this one just fires, and if it dies, well, that's unfortunate, but there you go. The missile will still fly towards the target. This one doesn't have that. It's radar guided. If the radar platform dies, the missile veers off course and misses. Comes equipped with far more loadout than the Buck M1-2 and the Buck M1, or the Buck M2. Jesus, this is gonna fuck me up every time. Its HE is slightly lower, but it can also engage helicopters at a decent range. Keep in mind, it's decent, because most helicopters will outrange you at this stage, at 26-25. Most HGMs at this point have better range than that. Also, I want to make a comparison between this one and the Patriot that I covered in the US deck video. This one actually has better range than the Patriot. 9,800 meters versus 9,450. And I think that overall, you're paying too little extra for the Vityaz when compared to the Patriot. I mean, yes, this thing has slightly less HE. It is the same accuracy, it has better range. But you get 4 times as many missiles and they're fire and forget. And not just that, but the reload time is better. And the platform itself is slightly more mobile. I'd say make the Vityaz more expensive. Or reduce the price of the Patriot. But I think making the Vityaz more expensive would be the better way to go. Because right now, it is just too much better than the Patriot for almost the same price point. Other AA platforms. Well, the OSAs, I believe, have not been changed that much. We also have the Tor. The Tor has gotten a little bit of a buff against airplanes at 4375. I believe that used to be 3500 something. The Tor M2E is firing, again, 16 missiles like the Vityaz, but it is more diverse in its targeting capability. Less range against airplanes, much less. But the range against helicopters is slightly better. So comparing the Tor to the Tor M2E, the stats are pretty similar. Their range is almost identical, but something that really sets the M2E apart is a stabilizer. You can keep this thing rolling with a front push and it will continue to fire, whereas the Tor needs to stop and fire. Of course, you still have other options in case you're looking at anti-air targets or at air targets. The Tunguska M1 has been added as a new unit. Still really good range against helicopters, now also with the main guns. The anti-air or anti-helicopter range with the missile has been buffed to 3675, meaning that it still outranges every single HGM on a helicopter that I've been able to find. And of course that is what the Tunguska is famous for, and that's why you use it. Other units here, I believe, have not been changed that much, so let's move on to the tank section. Lots and lots of new tanks. Let's go over them quickly. The Black Eagle, this is one of those tanks that comes with a smoke dispenser. In case you're not familiar how this works, it's pretty much the same as deploying smoke with a mortar. So you press B, you click somewhere in front of the tank because its range is only 245 meters, and it smokes itself. It's not there to smoke a push, it doesn't work. You just need to use mortar systems for that, but this thing is more as a last-ditch self-defense effort. They fire all 9 rounds instantly, so it's a one-shot weapon in that sense. You need to rearm the entire 9 mags before, and the entire 9 rounds before it fires again. As for the weapon itself, The two A46M smoothbore, good range, good mobility, good stabilizer, really solid tank. 28% or points of strength with 25% ECM. Comes with medium optics, very fast, very nice tank this one. T95 is, I believe, not as impressive as the Black Eagle, or at least not as diverse. But this thing is a pure tank killer. 27 AP. I believe that's the highest AP value on a main gun that I've seen to date. And keep in mind, it's a kinetic weapon, which means that the closer you get, the higher this goes, and the bigger your chances of shooting a target, penetrating its armor and doing massive damage to it. It's a 152mm main gun. Does not come equipped with machine guns. This is important because it means that against infantry it's not going to be as important. But what you pretty much have is a pure anti-tank weapon. A pure tank destroyer. And not a tank destroyer in the sense that it has good mobility, because it's got okay mobility. But it's just a very hard-hitting gun. And then we have the T14 Armata. Again, don't mind the look of the thing, just look at the stats. Range, perfect. Accuracy, very good. Stabilizer could have been better. If you're looking at the Black Eagle, it has a better stabilizer. The gun, as far as AP goes, is almost the same, 24 versus 25. This one, however, comes equipped with an autocannon, and that is going to really help you out against transports as well as infantry. It unfortunately does not come with a smoke discharger. I would very happily dispose of the NVST and get a smoke discharger in return. Unfortunately, that's not the way that this thing works. So if you want to smoke up your Armata, again, use another smoke laying platform. Now, I compared this thing to the US tanks. If you compare the M1A2 SEP to the T14 Armata, you're going to see stats that are pretty similar, but where the stats for 10 points definitely favor the M1A2 a lot more. You have more frontal armor, you have more side, more back, and slightly less top armor. You're faster, you do sacrifice some autonomy. Rate of fire is the same. This thing has less HE than the Armata, so it's better against infantry, but you don't bring out an Armata against infantry. AP 25-26, accuracy is better on the M1A2. So if you are going to go head to head with an M1A2, bring the T95. Because while it does not have as good armor, it's going to easily slice through the armor on this tank. Just keep in mind that it has 30 strength versus 28. The difference, however, is that the T95, as with most of the Russian tanks, comes with ECM. The Americans don't seem to have that. Moving on to the other Russian tanks. I believe that the PT-90 hasn't been changed. Maybe gotten a little bit better range than the Milyutka. BMP 685, again, I believe it has not been changed. Most of these T-55s haven't been touched, with the exception of the T-55AD. Pretty powerful tank for a 45 pointer. It dies pretty quickly, but again, like all tanks, they've been buffed with a better strength rating, so they're now 20 hit points. Also comes with a smoke discharger. I do not really see this thing as valuable to smoking up itself, but blend these in between your T14 Armatas, and you can smoke up your T14 with the T55 and pretty much use a smoke shield / meat shield role for the T55. Next, T62s. Not that much of a change. T62 M1 got a new missile, which I'm not too impressed with. The Spetsnaz has good range for an ATGM, but its accuracy and armor piercing are pretty lackluster. The Arcan, still in game, still pretty good accuracy, decent AP, nothing too special there. And the T62 MD, again, nothing really too special. Unless I'm massively overlooking something, but I don't believe so. T64 line hasn't been changed that much. Does come with some of these tanks with smoke dischargers. The Agona missile is still on the T64 BV, and you have the T64 BM2. This one is a really nice all-rounder. Good frontal armor, although keep in mind that you're now dealing with Abrams which have 26, as well as infantry that's going to hit you right on the top of the tank, which then makes this tank slightly less interesting, as its top armor is only 4, meaning that those javelins, if they hit the top armor, which is exactly what they're going for, they have a chance of, well, one-shotting, maybe two-shotting this tank. That's how powerful those things are. And that is something that you're going to really have to think about if you want to deploy this tank. T-72 line, still there, still trusty. Some again come with smoke chargers, not all of them do. T-72B3 has been added, or at least a unit has been replaced with the T-72B3. Still comes with the Invar. See, this is the accuracy I want to see, 60% or better. 24 AP, comes with 4 of them, unfortunately semi-active, so you need to be guiding them, but they can be fired while maneuvering. That is very handy. Frontal armor is alright, but this thing too suffers from a low top armor, 4 points. T-72B line, nothing too stellar there, and it ends with the T-90 AM. I'm not too impressed with this tank if you compare it to the Armata. Yes, you're paying slightly less for it. And while you're paying slightly less for it, the stats are still pretty similar. I would say the T14 Armata is a little bit more diverse in its role because it comes with the autocannon. The T90 AM is more geared towards killing tanks. If you cannot touch the tank with the smoothbore gun, you can always use the Invar, which again can be fired on the move. 24 AP. It's a nice way to soften up a target before you engage it with the main gun. Speed, very good. Autonomy, quite good. Not as good as the Armata. And the stats on the gun are pretty similar, but slightly favor the Armata, while the stabilizer on the 90 is better. But it just has 1 point more of armor piercing. And the other tanks, the T80s, T80A I believe has not been changed. T80U, maybe some slight changes. UM, this thing used to be 155 points, I think. Something along those lines. T80B and the T80BV, not too much of a change. Moving on swiftly to Recon, where you have the Ansat 2RC. Interesting helo. Recon, very small, meaning it's going to be not too survivable, but it has good stealth. I'm not sure if this is a drone helicopter or not. Judging by the unit picture here, I would say it's a manned helicopter. But these things definitely pack an interesting set of weaponry. They can do some ground attack mission and kill off a helicopter or 2. Not too many of them. They only have 5 HE, carry 6 of these. Accuracy is very good at 75. Range is very good. I would use this one as a flanker. Again, if only it would come with an autocannon. Because if I'm engaging a command vehicle and I cannot hit it with the 10 rockets that I carry, then I can only keep spotting it, but I cannot punish it. And if it's a lightly thin-skinned vehicle, I would not be able to kill it. If I had an autocannon, I would. Then we have the M8R, or sorry, the Mi8R. Now the ELINT tag that you see over here means it's electronic intelligence, and as I've been told, it has better capabilities of spotting radar-guided platforms. So this thing is one that you use to sniff out enemy radar platforms. Other than that, it's pretty much your standard Mi8 Recon. It's just very expensive at 90 points. Mi-24K hasn't been changed that much. Still exceptional optics on this. I'm not sure if that always was the case. Might have been very good optics. The K-52, some changes here, I think. It has once again regained its good stealth. I believe this used to be medium in standard wargame. Comes with some very, very accurate anti-air weaponry, and also a couple of anti-ground helicopter or anti-ground missiles, anti-tank weapons. Perfect hunter killer. Especially if you blend this one in with a couple of attack helicopters. These guys are going to be providing optics. You could even consider turning off the weapons on the K-52, unless you're using it in, for example, a scouting role, which, let's say you're trying to hunt down command vehicles, then I would use all of these weapons. Keep in mind, it does not come with a main gun. It comes with a couple of anti-radar weapons. Here's the problem. Normal anti-air platforms would say, well, yeah, sure, but you outrange me. Not this one. This one outranges pretty much all the anti-air platforms. Next up, BRM1K hasn't been changed, still exceptional optics, medium stealth. We have the BRM3K Rice or Reese. We've seen the T72 or TA72 M3 autocannon before. Also the Coronet. Very nice platform. Of course, very fast. Inherits quite a bit of the armor from the BMP3 or the BMD3. Very mobile scouting platform which can definitely bite back. Keep in mind the Coronet is not stabilized. You need to be sitting still to fire that one. PT-76B and the T-55 haven't been changed. Razvedka haven't been changed with the exception potentially of the RPG-28. I don't think they used to carry that one. So that's a nice upgrade for them in the sense of anti-tank weaponry. But really, if a tank is looking at you and getting close enough to for you to fire it back at them, then there's a very good chance that they will not die to your one shot of 25 AP. And it looks at you once, it fires machine guns, it fires the main gun, and you're dead. So how valuable exactly this RPG-28 is, I wouldn't rely too heavily on it for anti-tank capabilities. Then we have the Spetsnaz GRU, again classed as heavy. I'm still not exactly sure what that means, because yes, they're an elite unit, they have very good stealth, they come with some impressive weaponry, including that heavy machine gun again, but other than that I don't find them particularly heavy. The VMF haven't been changed, exceptional stealth as you would expect from a sniper team. They are however now a 3-man team, and I believe that used to be 2-man team. As for the cheaper options for Recon, you now have the Volk. Very nice, very, very cheap Recon platform. Extremely fast off-road, 120. If you want something that can do a little bit better, you can get the Volk KPV. Comparing these things side by side, that's the Volk. Yeah, here we go. If you're looking at them side by side, you're going to see very, very few changes. The main thing is that the Volk KPV comes with a machine gun, so you could go down range and try to hunt down lightly armored targets. Again, it does come with a pretty good HE and also 2 AP, but I would not really put it up against an autocannon from an IFV. It really doesn't do too well there. Anti-air? Now that's a whole different story. You can probably kill that easily. The Plamia still comes with a grenade launcher, BRM2, KPVT, and the BRDM3 ELINT. Now again, good at spotting radar platforms, and other than that, still comes with the autocannon. Vehicle tab. Most of these I have already covered. I'm not sure if I explicitly mentioned the BMD4. This thing now comes with an autocannon, a main gun, and the HGM Shershin, the P2B. Very nice weapon, good range, good accuracy, and very good AP. Other than that, I think I covered most of the vehicles here as they're the transports. Yep, we have the mortars moved to the vehicle tab. So you can have quite a lot of artillery in your support tab and then still have your artillery units over here, or your mortars. The Sturm, still there, still carries the Kokon. If you really need something dead, I would use the MTLB Chrysanthema. 65% accuracy, 27 AP, fire and forget weapons. That's very, very nice on a platform like this, because its own survivability is low, but if you fire off a missile and you die in the meanwhile, well, big deal, because the weapon will keep going, even if the launcher has died. Tank destroyer wise, the SU-122-54 hasn't been touched. The Norov, I believe, hasn't been touched. We got the Zviroboy SD. This is an artillery platform, or it's a weird vehicle. What is it classed as? A self-propelled artillery. Yeah. this is a sort of artillery unit that doesn't mind being a tank destroyer, if you will. D22, 152mm rounds, 27 AP. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same gun that the T95 comes with. No, it's a different gun. This gun has, again, very high AP, but it has nowhere near the armor to withstand being shot at. So it's a sheer ambushing unit with poor stealth. So that's not really lining up too well. And interestingly, it can also, at short range for an artillery unit, fire smoke rounds. And standard, well actually that's the only thing it can fire, because it doesn't have any HE nor AP. Rate of fire is very, very slow. I am really not too sure in what sort of situation you would use this unit. So let me know down in the comments when and where would you deploy this one on the battlefield. Next, the Sprut SD. Tank destroyer by far. 45 points. Comes with a very, very punchy gun. Decent HE. Rate of fire is on the lower end for a weapon system such as this one. Comes with a Dishka. Off-road speed is atrocious for a vehicle like this. You'd believe that a vehicle from 2004, which would probably have a shoot and scoot roll, fire off 1 or 2 rounds and then get the hell out before the enemy fires back at you, would have better off-road speed, but it just doesn't. It's also going to have to rely on other friendlies to do spotting for it. Poor optics. Transports or cheaper weapons for the ATGMs. The Coronet, again, anti-tank weapon. The Conqueror's M, anti-tank weapon. The Tiger Faye. This is the dread of all infantry. Do you remember the anti-tank or the engineering vehicles that, for example, the US have, and the CEV, the Combat Engineers vehicle for the British? This is pretty much the Russian answer to that, but with the exception that it fires 2800 meter range thermobaric weapons, which do 8 HE. I would not be surprised if these things also start a fire the moment that they hit, but I have not yet been able to test that. That means that these things at extreme range can take out your infantry if they're in a building. Be very concerned if you see something that looks quite harmless coming your way and just melt your infantry out of a town. Right, Helos. The Akula now comes with an upgrade to its anti-air missile weaponry, or air-to-air. Pretty decent range against Helos, very good accuracy. Its firepower at 5 HE is okay, but it does mean you're going to have to hit at least twice. K60 I mentioned, the K92 I covered. The Mi-28 also has a newer brother, the Mi-28 NW. Interestingly, they're not so much an upgrade as sort of a side grade. Because while this thing has, compared to the Mi-28, weapons that hit harder, they sacrifice a little bit of range. You're losing out on about 200 meter range when compared to the Ataka V. Accuracy is less, but it hits with 2 more points of AP. Also, this one's fire and forget versus semi-active. That's a big change. And apparently the rocket pods are now extremely accurate at 55%. But they are still 122mm, so they still only do 4 HE. And other than that, I don't believe that there are too many changes to the helicopter tab. Now let's move on to the air tab. Mi-21 or MiG-21 BIS, not too many changes there. The MiG-23A1 comes with a couple of very long-range anti-air missiles, fire and forgets. These are pretty much the new, I suppose you could say, throwaway or cheap-end anti-air or air superiority fighter. Fire and forget missiles hits pretty hard at 7 HE. Of course, it won't one-shot jets, but you can fire off these things very rapidly and just bug out. You don't need to be there to guide the weapons to the target. That's a big plus. MiG-27, AP at 28. I'm not sure if that was always the case, Su-27M. The Su-27M was always very dangerous. It used to cost 200 points. It's now 140. This thing comes equipped with a couple of extremely long-range anti-airplane weapons. The R77P1. Almost 9.5 clicks at 80% accuracy. But keep in mind that their HE is slightly lower than what you might like. It's only 6, which means that a plane like this, if you want to kill itself, you'd have to fire at least 2 missiles at it, which would have to hit. The KH-29T, long-range anti-tank weapon, 30 AP, very good accuracy and fire and forgets. And you'll get that for 140 points. MiG-29s, not too many changes with the exception of their long-range anti-air weapon, or air-to-air, the R-77. Pretty good accuracy, very long range, again 6 HE. MiG-29M, same stats, and the MiG-35S, keep in mind this is not a MiG-29 line, this is an upgrade, comes with a couple of cluster bombs. Take note, these things do top damage, which means that the tanks are going to be rained down on with bomblets doing 11 AP apiece. And considering that most tanks do not have a lot of top armor, let's take the US Heavy for example, this thing has 7 top armor, which means that you're going to penetrate it. You're going to do quite a lot of damage to this tank. Survivability on this aircraft is quite good at 50% ECM. Exceptional air detection, and with very, very good airspeed, you're going to be going in, firing off either air-to-air weapons or the cluster bombs and get the hell out. MiG-31, I believe it has not been changed that much. Maybe a little bit more ranged against airplanes, 14,000 kilometers now. Su-24 always was a seaplane, now also comes equipped with these jammer pods which shut down enemy radar platforms and pretty much shut them down until you are in range to fire this thing, which then shuts them down permanently. With a 50% accuracy and 2 of these at fire and forget, you have a pretty good chance of killing at least one anti-air platform. 55% ECM, very good speed on these. MiG-25BM, I'd say it's now inferior to the Su-24, and that is also reflected in the price tag. 85 versus 95, does not come equipped with jammer pods. It's faster, but its ECM is lower. And without the jammer pods, you have a better chance of being shot down before you get in range to fire those KH-31Ps. Then we have the Scat. This is the Russian answer to the stealth aircraft that the US have. It comes equipped with a couple of anti-tank weapons. So you can use this as a sort of tank sniper, and considering it has very good stealth, you're going to be getting away with it. Also, and this is a risky play, it comes equipped with a KH-31P, so that's the anti-radar missile, good range. You're less likely to be detected, as you have very good stealth, but it does not come equipped with jammer pods. You can take out exactly one anti-air platform, but how the game exactly handles which weapon gets fired and how it happens to evac, I'm not sure. Because you could argue that it classes this one as I have fired my main weapon, I'm evacing, when you are in fact trying to get the KH-29D to hit something like a super heavy. So I'm not exactly sure which of these it considers as the main weapon and when it's going to evac. So that's something you have to micromanage potentially. Su-24M, still a very heavy bomber. IL-102, not too many changes there. Su-24M2, if you absolutely want the enemy infantry dead, then this is your weapon of choice. It comes with 9 500 kilogram bombs. If those don't do the trick, you can just put them on fire. 500 kilogram bombs times 9 means that these things do a massive amount of damage against infantry. They can probably lay a very, very long napalm screen. Further tank killers, Su-25T and TM. Not that much of a change. I believe that these things are pretty similar to what they were, with the exception of ground range. And I believe the R73M, it's not that much change that we've seen. Then we're coming up in fighter territory. Su-27S. Very good aircraft, 40% ECM, and it only gets better from there. 45% ECM. Extreme range air-to-air weapon, the R-72EA, almost 10 kilometer air-to-air range at 75% accuracy and 7 HE. This thing is ridiculously dangerous to your aircraft. You just need to circle this over your base and wait for it to fire off its missiles. And considering it has exceptional air detection, it's going to allow you to very easily spot enemy aircraft as they're coming in and just shoot them down at extreme range before they're even in range to fire off their own armament. But of course that might not be enough. The Su-35S is worse. And by worse, I mean if you're flying NATO aircraft, you do not want to see the enemy deploy one of these. You will see them deploy them, because these aircraft do not have stealth. Their ECM is 55%. They come equipped with those extremely long-range interceptor missiles. Again, everything's fire and forget. If these things don't do the trick, then you close in a little bit more to 10 kilometers and you fire off another 5 fire and forget missiles. These things are probably fired very quickly, although I haven't tested them yet. Very, very dangerous airplane. Su-34, a heavy-duty bomber. A couple of standard bombs as well as cluster bombs, again attacking top. The Su-34 MF, this is another interesting platform. This thing does a lot of HE damage. It's a laser-guided bomb with a range of 5 kilometers, mind you. Another 5.2 kilometer range against tanks, or at least heavily armored targets. Keep in mind, this is HE, this is AP. Again, I have no idea how it handles the weapon behavior and when it evacs the plane. And the R-77P1 that we've seen before, very accurate, very long range with very good HE. It's a very good all-rounder. Further aircraft, we have the Su-57 as well as the MiG-37. These things are again fighters, but they are more focused on close-range encounters. Su-57 first. Everything on these weapon systems, by the way, is fire and forget. The Ka-74, pretty good range against airplanes, but mostly in dogfighting range. And I would not really want to be dogfighting at a speed like this, but look at their turn radius. 265 and even 250 on the MiG-37. Range is very good, 10.5 clicks. And the MiG-37 is more one of a jet that's quite happy at engaging tanks and then doing dogfighting on the side, as it were. Because it doesn't come with these long-range anti-air missiles or air-to-air. It comes with 6 shorter range fire and forgets, which do 5 HE apiece. So you'd need to hit 3 of them if you're not even going to use your gun in order to bring down an aircraft. It does, however, come with 2 long-range fire and forgets, 29 AP damage, meaning that you can pretty much one-shot every single tank. Well, that's not strictly speaking true, not anymore. Not with tanks having 30 hit points. Very quickly going to go over ships because some of these things have been changed. The Stergusci, I believe this used to be the Sovremeni or the Udaloy. I'm not exactly sure which ship this replaces. It does, however, have the dual long-range guns, 8 very long-range, very accurate weapon systems for our ship-to-ship encounters, and a lot of self-defense missiles. 128 of these. Seawiz is exceptional. That doesn't mean too much, because I've found ships that have good or even very good anti-ship or anti-ship missile capability, so very good Seawiz, to still be killed quite easily, as the ship-to-ship missiles fly a whole lot faster. Now you could argue, why the hell is that important, because we're never going to play naval anyway. If you're going to play the campaign, then there is no getting away from the naval encounters. And in that case you will be using Seawiz, and you will encounter how dangerous ship-to-ship missiles are. The improved Krivac, again long range, even better range on the anti-ship missiles than you can see on the Stergusci. The Krivac also comes with self-defense missiles, but not nearly as many. This one is more geared towards anti-air duty, comes with very long range anti-airplane missiles, very high HE, and very, very accurate. You do not want to have one of these things parked off your shore, because they will shoot down any aircraft that comes too close. Let's see, there are more ships in here, but not nearly as much as there used to be. Also, the ships now come with very long range anti-ship missiles. I never was really a big fan of the MiG-29K because its anti-ship weaponry was only 1 missile. That's been buffed to 4 with a range of 9.1 kilometers. 60 AP means that you can pretty much one-shot any ship if multiple missiles go through. Extremely dangerous contender, this one. Tunguska 3, more of an escort. Again, take note of the price change here. It's only 55 points. Means you can buy almost 3 of these ships for 1 T14. Long range anti-ship missile, although not as long as the Krivac that we just saw. And more of a defensive role. I'd say this is more of a fleet defender. And other than that, yes, of course, the... Holy shit. I haven't even seen this one yet. The Basalt. 12.4 kilometer range against ships. 200 AP. This thing fires once, you die. Here's the problem. It's 1 missile. If that thing gets shot down, you're probably going to be reloading for a half hour. And you're going to need to fire quite a few of these things before you want to have one of those missiles go through. And to wrap it up, Schmel hasn't been changed. SU-27K still comes with 1 anti-ship missile, but it does a lot of damage. And then we have the Torrential 3, more of a ship killer. Cheap boat, 50 points, good sea whiz, comes with 4 extreme long range Onyx missiles, do a lot of damage. Not too good in the self-defense role, because these Strela 3s do not track enemy anti-ship missiles. And I believe that covers it. And I'm happy about that, because this thing has lasted an hour. So, hope you enjoyed it. Again, I will not be doing tech support for this mod. That is not my role. There's a Discord devoted to that, and you can find that in the description down below. This is just more of an overview of the units that you can expect, and I'm still going to plan on setting up a new or a PvP match where we're going to be testing out these things. And of course, I will be recording that and uploading that soon. For now though, end of the video. I'm through. And I'd be surprised if you're still watching, so give me a shout out if you are. And thank you for watching. Have fun with the mod. It changes the game entirely and just completely revamps Wargame. Meaning that you will have to relearn a lot of units. Have fun. Thank you for watching. See you soon.